Hello, and thank you for joining us for this special edition of the Newsfeed. I'm your host, Delia Moresco. Today we're welcoming special guests to discuss the upcoming Virginia primary election, the major issues surrounding the campaigns, and how students are getting involved in this election cycle. This and more coming up on today's election special of the Newsfeed. Before we get started, let me introduce you to our guests. Guests, can you tell us your names and a little bit about yourselves? Dr. Kuipers, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Kuipers. I'm an associate professor of political communication in the communication department here at Virginia Tech.
Thank you.
My name is Jason Kelly. I'm an assistant professor of political science. My focus is Congress, U.S. elections, and political parties.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Julia Billingsley, and I am a sophomore studying public policy in the public and urban affairs major, as well as political science.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zach Eder. I'm a political science and economics major, and I am the chairman for the College Republicans.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the number of candidates on the Republican ticket as opposed to the number on the Democratic ticket going into this election? Zach, we'll start with you.
I think it's a really good thing for the Republican Party. You know, we started off with over 10 candidates, and, you know, we were able to eliminate, you know, who do voters want, you know, what are important issues to Republicans. And I thought this was, you know, really important. You know, we get to see different sides to the Republican Party, and I think this has really helped increase the Republican base. On the Democratic side, they're very good at, you know, like getting behind one candidate. So they've been able to create a bigger foundation for their party.
Julia?
Yeah, and I think that I wish the Democratic side did have more candidates, because it's been interesting to watch in both debates how the candidates distinguish themselves on policy issues from one another. And I really enjoy watching both debates, and I wish there had been more candidates, even with Martin O'Malley in the race, in the initial part of the race. But it's always, I think, important in the democratic process of nominating a candidate and then electing a president and having a diverse range to choose from and hearing their thoughts during debates and town halls and things like that. So I wish the Democratic side had looked a little bit more like the Republican side, maybe not such large numbers, but more candidates from both moderate and progressive voters to choose from.
Absolutely. Dr. Kelly?
Yeah, well, I think it changes the dynamic of the race. So if you have several candidates, you'll actually get a different outcome than if you have few candidates. So in the U.S. system in particular, we have you know, first past the post. Particularly if it's winner take all for first past the post, you would expect a very different outcome. Which, you know, maybe it's the outcome you want, but maybe it's not. So I think you know, we need to think about, you know, what are we trying to achieve in our primary elections, and then decide maybe what format is most likely to achieve that outcome.
Dr. Kuipers, anything to add?
Not much, except I was thinking earlier when you mentioned about the Democrats, I too would have liked to have seen a wider field. There was a lot of liveliness and discussion of policy issues very early on in the Republican field, much less so in the Democrat field. And I think of our own poor Jim Webb, that I really would have liked to have seen gone on, because he has a very different Democratic Party voice, and that was very quickly muffled, and of course now he's out. And so.
Thank you. Trump and Clinton have held pretty steady leads up to this point in the polls. Are there any candidates that you think might have the potential to surprise us still in this election season? Zachary, I know you mentioned Bernie Sanders. Care to elaborate on that?
I think he's been really good at getting a lot of young voters out to come support him. So I think that's why, especially in Iowa, that was a huge surprise to, you know, watch it come down to a coin flip. And, you know, even though Hillary won that, he also won. And he's just doing really well. I also think Ted Cruz is going to start to make a comeback again, especially, you know, he's projected to win Texas. So I think that'll really help him after Super Tuesday, but we'll have to see.
Julia?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think Senator Sanders really captures the voice of a lot of young voters. I think the reason we're not seeing his popularity amongst voters really turn out in the primary results is because a lot of young voters don't turn out in the numbers that I think a lot of us young voters would wish our fellow peers would turn out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Dr. Kuipers?
I'm thinking about this. There's new candidates who might come in. Well, Bloomberg is talking about it. The Republicans are thinking about drafting Mitt Romney again if things don't go their way. I really don't think that's going to happen, and that's not an official prediction because who knows in this election. But I think the place to watch really isn't so much Texas, it's Massachusetts in terms of at least the Republicans, because if Trump can score there very well and get into those blue-collar workers and the Reagan Democrats, he could just win just about anywhere. And I think that's where the Democrats at the national level are going to be looking at. Texas, yeah, Cruz is probably going to win, but with their proportional system, it really depends on how big of a win. So if he just gets a little win, I don't think he's going to have a chance. But if he scores really, really big, gets over that 50% mark in a lot of the districts, you know, he could have a shot at really coming back.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Kelly, anything to add?
Yeah, I think, Sanders has surprised us. I think he actually has surprised himself in Iowa and in New Hampshire. Nevada, though, we kind of see the race moving back to what we expect. South Carolina, Clinton wins by 47.5 points. I think she runs up the total in the South, and she creates a pledged delegate gap that Sanders just can't close. You only need about 70 to 100 delegates, and I think she actually gets that by the end of Super Tuesday. And
sorry to
no.
cut you short. We're very excited again to have this panel here with us today. Coming up after the break, we're going to get our panelists' input on what issues college students are considering before going to the polls. Don't go away.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay.
But getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early.
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Hi, I'm Darius Miles.
And I'm Emily Kerrigan, and we're here in the Squire Student Center for this special edition of the Newsfeed.
We're going to get an inside perspective on what students think are their most important issues to them for the upcoming 2016 presidential election.
Let's hear what they think.
This election season is really, it's really unique to any others I've witnessed. Maybe it's because I'm older, but I'm starting to realize a little bit more things.
I guess I would be considering what the candidates' plans are for the future, and specifically like in future generations, how they can prepare them to like be well set up.
So based off the information I learned on Facebook, I believe that free tuition for college students is a big issue.
And on a lot of the issues, they focus on like race and religion. That's what I'm seeing mainly in the media.
Accessibility to cheaper education and our relationship with the Middle East.
Creating more jobs and readjusting the economy, as well as making sure that we care about all of our citizens.
Healthcare, because healthcare concerns most all of the individuals in the United States. And a lot of like the Obamacare stuff is really like vague. There's a lot of ambiguity with like the things that are going on with Obamacare.
Healthcare and national security.
I think international affairs and education. I mean, we are the future, right?
And I would have to say unemployment and also healthcare.
I think getting money out of politics and elections is the most important thing.
Women's rights and like equal rights for all genders and equal pay.
Probably just international affairs.
I think immigration and unemployment in this country.
Well, we've definitely heard a wide range of opinions and perspectives from students.
And now that you've heard what they have to say, we're going to send it back to you. Reporting for this special edition of the Newsfeed, I'm Emily Kerrigan.
And I'm Darius Miles.
Back to you in the studio.
Welcome back to this special edition of the Newsfeed. If you're just joining us, we're here discussing the upcoming Virginia primaries. I'm Delia Moresco, and I'm joined here again with Dr. Jim Kuipers from the Communications Department, Dr. Jason Kelly from the Political Science Department, Julia Billingsley from Young Democrats at Virginia Tech, and Zachary Etter from College Republicans at Virginia Tech. We've talked about some of the controversies surrounding the Virginia primary, but now let's get down to the issues. You've seen what some college students think are the most important issues, but now let's hear from you. What do you think are the biggest issues surrounding this election? Dr. Kuipers, we'll start off with you.
The largest issues, the economy and terrorism, flat out. How are you going to protect the homeland, and how are you going to get the economy back up and running? I think we've been 8 years now, maybe 10 years of less than 3% growth per year, and that's just too long. Americans are feeling it. The unemployment rate, when you factor in those underemployed or have just given up looking for work, is considerably higher than the level that's being put out there now. And so people feel that. Students in the studio here are feeling that when they go out looking for jobs. It's a tough market out there. So the economy is very big, and then of course what's been happening worldwide with ISIL and in San Bernardino here on our own turf. That's forefront in people's mind, and the candidates that speak to those issues forcefully are the ones that are really getting the attention.
Dr. Kelly?
Yeah, I agree that those are the big issues. I think a really interesting issue this election cycle will be healthcare. On the left, you have Bernie Sanders talking about a universal or single-payer system. Hillary Clinton wants to keep things more or less the same. As we heard earlier or last week in the Republican debate, there seemed to be a lot of people talking about getting rid of the individual mandates, but keeping the pre-existing conditions clause, and how you can do that without, experiencing the death spiral that Oregon, for instance, experienced when they tried to do that. I think will be an interesting debate that we haven't had yet, but we will when we get to the general election.
Zachary, important issues.
I think national security is a big one right now. I mean, over the past couple of years, you've had the Arab Spring, the Ukraine with Russia, ISIS, and a big one is the southern border, with Mexico, and how that's, there's been an increase in attention on that. So I think that's a very big issue that's getting voters out on that. And then as well, the economy, how to get jobs for college students coming right out. And so those are some of the big issues.
Julia?
I think from a young voter perspective, there's some slightly different interests and the big issues during the primary season and leading into the presidential election. I think the environment, college affordability, those things are very huge on young voters' perspective when they look at candidates on both sides. But I think that, again, those aren't the big issues of the primary season and the presidential election, because you don't see that turnout in young voters, so they don't become the major issues pressing on the candidates, not necessarily, at least on the Republican side. So I think that, again, the economy, national security are the main issues, but not necessarily for all voters, especially in the younger age. It tends to differ a little bit more.
Thank you. We surveyed Virginia Tech students about what they believe to be the most important issues. They ranked national security, unemployment, and healthcare as the top 3, so let's break it down. National security was ranked number 1. Zachary, can you start us off and talk a little bit about this?
I think the United States needs to be, very present in world issues. We can't take a back seat to what's happening, because when America is not at the forefront of global actions, things don't go peacefully, or they just, America should be there. I think we've always been involved, and it's something that we shouldn't, let go of.
Julia?
I think too much intervention in the past has led our country into economic strife as well as political strife, and I think I'd like to see kind of shift away from so many interventionist policies and national security. I think it's important to protect security in the homeland, but it's possible without intervening in a lot of unnecessary situations a lot of times during regime changes.
Dr. Kelly?
Yeah, well, it's not surprising that national security is a big issue, number one in your poll, probably number one in most issues. People are frightened. They see what happens in Paris, they see what happens in San Bernardino, and even though those are very low probability events, they're spectacular events, and it captures people's attention. How that translates to what we do in Libya and Syria and Iraq and Iran, how we think about responding to North Korea. I don't know, but I imagine it has an impact. Certainly, it probably affects different people different ways, which I think was put on display quite nicely on the other side of your table.
Dr. Kuipers?
Well, national security seems to me to have been equated in this election really with terrorism, primarily. It's much larger than that. We have cybersecurity issues, for instance. We have Russia and China that are hacking into our systems, the IRS hack, the Pentagon hack. These are larger issues, and they're not really being discussed because they're being overshadowed by the terrorism issue. But whoever is the next president is going to need to discuss these other issues too as the campaign gets a little further along, because they are every bit as important, and we do need a plan for that in terms of security as well.
So our students next ranked unemployment. Dr. Kuipers, can you talk a bit more about why this is such a pressing issue at the moment?
Because they can't get jobs right away. I mean, it takes about, it could take up to 6 to 8 months for the average college graduate to get that first full-time job. Tech and the communication department at Tech, I don't know about the others, but Tech and the communication department do a great job. Our communication majors do tend to get out, and the overwhelming majority do get jobs very quickly. But it's a tough market. It's not necessarily an industry that they would prefer, and they feel this. And then they talk to their friends in other schools, and it's, why aren't you getting a job? Well, why aren't you getting a job? Well, I'm looking. How many did you apply for? 40? And really, you found 40 open? Yeah, but a couple of those were flipping burgers. And so, and so they're worried, and they should be. And they want somebody who is going to take the economy and the creation of jobs very seriously. And that goes for both parties, that they'll be looking for that.
Absolutely, definitely a big issue surrounding this upcoming election. Thank you all so much for your thoughts. We're going to head back into a quick break, but when we come back, we'll tell about how college students can get involved in this election and wrap up with some final thoughts. Stay tuned.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream, that I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly, just to come back in a new disguise and be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to this special edition of the Newsfeed. We've discussed the primary elections and major issues surrounding these campaigns. Now let's talk about how college students can get involved in this process. This is for Julia and Zachary as students heavily involved in campus political organization. Why do you think it's important for students to get involved?
It's important for students to get involved because they need to realize, their vote counts and it matters. And, one individually might be a small number, but a collection of college students where the campus is about 25,000, that's a large number of people who can affect an election.
Julia?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that college students have very strong political opinions, but they don't necessarily always act on them. So I think political organizations, and there can even be some nonpartisan voter advocacy ways to get involved on campus. I think those are very important because they encourage those students to become more active and kind of help policies reflect their interest if they were to become more involved.
Thank you. According to the Wall Street Journal, often the lack of student involvement comes from students not feeling particularly connected to the community surrounding their college campuses. Can you tell us about how you or your organizations have been involved in supporting a candidate locally this season? Zachary?
Well, last election we helped support Nancy Dye run for state senate here in Virginia, and currently our organization is helping Morgan Griffith, who's running for congressman of the 9th District here in Virginia. So that's kind of what we're doing, and then as we move closer to a nominee, we'll help, with the campaigns as they reach out, and that's what we're doing for candidates here.
Great. Julia?
Yes, and the Young Democrats really provide a very nice avenue to get involved in campaigns if you would like. We understand that not every politically involved student wants to work on a campaign, but we offer opportunities to canvass if you would like, phone bank, or intern with a campaign if you'd like, and have even paying jobs. But additionally, we also offer other opportunities to kind of, like for instance, we don't pick a position with a particular candidate until a nomination is announced. However, we do offer opportunities to get involved with, let's say, Hokies for Hillary or Hokies for Bernie. I don't know if that's the actual name for the clubs. However, there are clubs for prospective candidates, and those are a better option for the primary season and eventually for the election season. But right now, it's just more of an avenue to get involved if you'd like. Mm-hmm. We offer lots of opportunities.
That's great. For those students who have not gotten involved yet, are there any upcoming opportunities for students to get involved in either of your organizations?
Well, actually, both of our organizations are going to have a debate this Tuesday after spring break. It's going to be March 15th in the Haymarket Theater. And we're going to have about 5 speakers for each club kind of discussing topics. So that's something that we're doing together. And I know in the College Republicans, we are having the NRA come do a seminar on March 22nd as well. So they will come do their seminar, and they'll give out free NRA memberships, for if you sit in the seminar. And we do kind of events like these all the time, so. Yeah.
That's great.
And for the Young Democrats, we have lots of events always going on. Like Zach said, we have a debate coming up with the Collegiate Times. They're putting it on. Additionally, with the Young Americans for Liberty, a libertarian group on campus. And I think those are important to go to so students can really get a feel for the opportunities on campus with respective clubs. But additionally, with the Young Democrats, we have a lot of social opportunities as well. If you are interested in politics but don't always want to be politically involved in a campaign or in a debate, we offer like watch parties for the debates. And coming up tomorrow, we have a watch party at PK's with the Montgomery County Democratic Committee. And so that'll be fun. So it's just a way to get together and watch primary results come in. So just opportunities like that. We always post on our Facebook page, send out emails. So we always let the Virginia Tech community know what's going on with our organization.
That's great. Thank you, guys. It is no surprise that social media has changed the way many voters are receiving information about their candidates. This includes candidates' websites, social media pages, and the ever-popular memes that have taken this election cycle by storm. What kind of an impact do you think this is having on voters, specifically students and young voters? Dr. Kuipers, we can start with you.
Well, obviously campaigns are trying to reach out to all level of voters who happen to use a particular social media platform. But what they're having to do now is move away from what they had thought was the more established routes, for instance, your personal computer and a website, sending out email messages, and take into consideration that the way that we have used new communication technology has changed. We don't carry our computers around, we carry these little devices around, and we expect our apps and our advertisements to all fit here and be able to work very well. And so that changes the game in terms of a campaign message. Video, you expect a very short video message on your phone, whereas you would look at something considerably longer if it were on your computer. So with different uses in different age demographics, for instance, older Americans tend to still use their larger personal computer. Younger Americans tend to use their cell phones or a smaller tablet. You're going to have to make the message fit the medium, and also take in considerations a computer, for instance, is not necessarily considered a personal device, whereas your phone is considered a personal device, and so the message development needs to take that into consideration as well. And all campaigns do, and all campaigns tend to lag a few years behind industry as well until we see what is actually working. So I don't think there's going to be any really new major developments this season, but when you get to the next run, we're going to see much more with smartphones and tablets.
Very interesting. Dr. Kelly.
Yeah, I think they've actually presented a lot of unique opportunities for candidates. Television advertising is very inefficient. You broadcast to a media market that might overlap with your district. Social media allows you to target specific groups within your district, Google advertising, for instance, and even people who care about a particular issue. So it allows this for micro targeting that we see, particularly on the congressional campaigns, to be tailored to specific groups of individuals. On the other hand, you have things like Facebook, which create maybe a bit of ideological bubbles that insulate individuals from views that they might be more exposed to in traditional forms of media.
And that's an excellent point that you raised in terms of the micro-targeting, which leads to data mining and campaigns needing the massive amounts of information that is being mined. And it would be interesting to see when we start talking about NSA data mining, if that transfers over to the very type of data mining that these political campaigns want to use, because it's the exact same type of information. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, definitely an interesting point there. To turn it over to you guys, what are your thoughts on this?
I find it interesting, how to reach people ages 18 through 25, the quickest way to do it is on the cell phone. Mm-hmm. And, I've been, with I've been to Republican events where we're trying to vet people somewhat, just, hey, would you like to sign this, to get their information to say, hey, we're trying to target these votes, or, so those are kind of the things that are behind the scenes that go on. Mm-hmm. And they were correct, when they say, they try and look, the campaigns will try and look to see who do we want to reach out to, and how to best get new voters, because conventional methods with older generations aren't the same for newer generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Zach. This has been a great conversation about these elections, and that will wrap up this special edition of the Newsfeed. A big thank you again for all our guests for joining us today. If you have a story idea or even a talk show idea for the Newsfeed, let us know. Send us an email at thenewsfeednrv@gmail.com. And as always, you can connect with the Newsfeed on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Delia Moresco.